First of all, I'd like to say that I don't plan for the vast majority of my videos. Something comes up and I feel that I need to get on record before I start thinking about something else. I am a man who's always thinking, and I've had the privilege of being allowed to have a flexible work schedule that allows me to think and cultivate ideas. Now that is key when it comes to invention and academic excellence. Being able to condition yourself mentally and having the freedom to do so, as well as having the time to be lost in deep thought, such as Einstein and Socrates. These are people who had a lot of time to explore the things that occupied their thoughts. With that being said, even if a race was superior to another or ethnicities were superior to others, I do not believe that we should sterilize anyone. I believe in a natural order or things falling in place naturally, and that there is a hidden hand from God making it so. We should have a universal love for each other. Now think about a garden. In a garden, some plants are more beautiful than others. It is true we must remove the weeds, but weeds are a different species. The flowers that are beautiful quite often are very closely related to each other, like humans are. The weeds are like criminals, you could say, or they're other animals that we eat to survive. Out of necessity, the weeds are removed. Now, do not make the mistake of comparing them to other races of people or other ethnic groups. You see, the reason why the garden is beautiful isn't because of one beautiful plant, although perhaps it would be. It is because of the mixture of the paints in the painting, of the mixture of the flowers in the garden. And every flower plays its role. Some might be a little bit sickly. That's fine. This is nature. This is how it was. It's how it was meant to be. People naturally do not fall in love or do not date people who are disabled, developmentally or otherwise. Address the criminals who wish to rape these females who are mentally ill, not punish the female. Why feel the need to sterilize these people? People naturally move away from them. If we create positive philosophies that make it so that people have responsible sex, safe sex, or, wait till they're married or what have you, then naturally diseases do not spread. When you look at the greatest minds, so to speak, or quote unquote, they are people who see it the way I do. They don't see it the way the eugenicists did. Charles Darwin contradicted and called out his cousin time and time again. The greatest minds were not eugenicists. They were not cruel people. They wanted people to behave in a way that was responsible. They wanted the strong to care for the weak. We do not live in this sort of a society, now do we? We live in a society where people mock the mentally ill. People with drug abuse problems, substance abuse problems are mocked by society. People who have problems that they can treat, such as obesity, are also mocked by society. And why? Why this appalling evil? Why isn't there a universal love for each other? Well, goes back to the traits I've been talking about. Selfishness, shallowness, materialism, conformity, cowardice, evil, lies. That's why eugenics has been allowed to occur. You didn't have to do the fucking Zimbardo experiment and the Milgram experiment to realize why the Nazis went along with their eugenics program and with their Nazi philosophies. It was conformity. I mean, we see it all the time. I mean, it's a no-brainer. People are quick to conform, and they're slow to stand firm. That's why this next clip, I'm going to be very harsh with everybody. If it makes you feel better, I'm also harsh with myself. I do not allow myself to be second best. I force myself to be the first best. I see whatever. I know that my enemies will try to hinder my progress, but I do what I must to proceed naturally, fairly, and with God first in mind. And that is why I can never allow these people to pretend that someone is better. It will always go back to, well, prove you are better. We are not talking about gymnastics. We are not talking about entertainment. We are not talking about a pie eating contest. We're not talking about a marathon. We are talking about a very specific set of skills that allow one to honestly, naturally, traditionally, and logically claim that they are the top martial artist. In a world where gang stalkers would love for me to go to their gym and have some, coach who's a gang stalker, some referee who's a gang stalker judge the match, with their friends in the audience to try to feed into the idea that I'm being treated fairly. So I do it the very traditional way that you see in Ip Man, the movie. Because most of you relate to movies, and there's certain truths in movies. You see the Ip Man challenged people one-on-one, no referee. Every blow was conceded. Out of honor, out of truth, out of logic. And so that's how I do it. It's a very traditional kung fu kind of African way to do it that is recorded for the purpose of a higher cause. No tradition is broken. No nuance overlooked. No honor disgraced. I do it out of love for my fellow man, including martial artists, not out of hate. Not to rub it in their faces and say, ha ha, I'm better than you, you're just a bitch. No, but when you provoke me, I will say that. When you try to pretend it's not what it is, I will make sure it blows up in your face. That is one of my militant tactics. Everything you do to confound me will blow up in your face and will work in my favor. The drugging, the fuming, the repetitive messages, the psyops. I mean, my plaque even highlights the psyops, right? Let's see. I'm going to stand up for a second and read this plaque to you. 2013 to 2016, $3,000 challenge, covertly drugged with psyop impairing him. Transcendent hero Chukwuemeka, the immortal leopard, wins. And now I will pet my baby leopard. After researching mental toughness and mental conditioning as the top martial artist for maybe 5 years or so now, and for the rest of my life as a top martial artist in training, I have found that the most accurate scale of a man's toughness is how much he conforms to the New World Order. If he does the will of God, then he's among the toughest of men. It has nothing to do with how much physical pain they can take. That can be trained into somebody. It can be trained into a pussy. You can train a nerd to increase their tolerance for pain, and it happens all the time. In the martial arts, I've seen it time and time again. Complete geeks taught iron palm and iron shirt and iron body. It is not, what you might think it is. The most logical and balanced scale, the highest scale, the truest scale of a man's toughness is how much he conforms to the New World Order. If he doesn't conform, then he's among the toughest of men. If he doesn't conform to the extreme, if he sells out for pussy or money or out of fear of what might happen to himself or his loved ones, he's not very tough. You know, we all know deep in our souls that the people in charge are wrong and that conformity is wrong. And if we are convinced for any reason that it is okay to conform, it is okay to listen to these cowards and to be placed in their pyramid of social nonsense, of social status, then we are quite weak, selling out for very petty things relative to the reason to stay strong. That's why in the Bible, in Matthew 10:22, it says, stand firm. In other words, another way to put it is stand tough. Stand tough, stand firm. So you can measure a man, especially in a predominantly Christian society, a man's toughness by how much they are unwilling to conform, how far they'll go. You know, they've tempted me with women and pussy, and I stood firm. They tempt these guys with one fine chick, boom, they sold out. You know why they constantly tempt men with women? Because men sell out for women. Women sell out for social status, which is more pathetic and despicable, but it goes back to conformity, right? That's why part of the reason why women are less tough than men are is because they are more conformist. They conform more often and more readily, more easily, more steadily, more frequently than men. So there's your scale of toughness, and it's also your scale of virtue. See, what you see when you really do your research, when you really think about it deeply, that the scale of toughness and virtue are one and the same. How much someone conforms. That's why I have on my wall, never forget your oath to never sell out, never settle, never let anyone convince me to take down my videos, keep the last oath of the no sex, no romantic relationships, never give up on the revolution, never pretend that I am not the top martial artist because I am the best and no one has ever done what I have accomplished. Never. It goes on to say I'm a Christian that refuses to sell out, settle, break my oath, or pretend that I am not the top martial artist. No matter what happens, I need to secure my position as the top martial artist, and on and on and on. Okay? I don't need these reminders. I do this to take away from their repetitive messages through trolls, through prank calls, through the people I know. You know, not too long ago, some female told me that, I need a man who has more stamina. For those of you who've been paying attention to any of my videos, really, you know that they've been gassing me. It's messed up my wind and my respiratory system. So that's a way for them to try to say, hey, we'll help you work on the stamina. We'll stop gassing you if you conform. You see how that's tempting me with women and trying to use women and my health against me and trying to put me under them? You know, they love doing many things all at once. And if you go along with it, you're a fucking idiot. It's the same thing when you go to the psych ward, right? And you program with them. The only reason you program with them is so you can get out and go back to doing what you're supposed to do. But they're trying to push you on a permanent mind state in the habit and make you take up the habit of doing what they say and listening to other people who present themselves as experts or authority figures. Don't conform. Don't sell out. I suggest that you all make a list similar to mine, without the top martial artist part, and, you stick to it. You see, listening to them is a form of conformity. Don't listen to them. They love to control opposition and send people who pretend to see things the way you do and do subtle little tricks and not so subtle ones to get you to steer you to the direction they want you to go. To a mainstream movement. You have the whites, right, who are against the New World Order, and they want you to speak out against the New World Order in a way that helps them with their agenda. You have the Jews and their gay movement and their atheists, and you have all these different groups in society, controlled churches, agnostic movements, race-based movements, La Raza, the new Black Panthers, you have these, just communists. You have all these different movements, and they're all part of Babylon's system. Even ironically, and sadly enough, the Rasta movement, the mainstream Rastafari movement, as much as I hate to say it, let's face it, even Bob Marley's family have conformed. I don't know what point they did, but it's very apparent that they have. All the people that you think didn't conform, they did. Absolutely. They did. They sold out. They showed that lack of toughness. They showed weakness by conforming. That's what conforming is. It's weakness. It's saying, I fear the repercussions for not conforming, so I'm going to pick a group that is closest to what I believe. Absolute cowardice, absolute weakness, absolute lack of mental toughness. Stand firm. Stand tough. Don't be swayed by anybody or anything. They're already soft killing 100 million people a year. You know, I mean, these are scumbags who, you know, do eugenics and feed retarded kids radioactive cereal. These are scumbags, well, special needs, whatever you want to call them. These are scumbags that put needles in babies' heads and turn them upside down to track the blood flow. The Lord knows what chemicals in their system. I'm going off the top of the head right now. You know, from the experiments list that I read, the unethical experimentation, non-compulsory. You know, these are scumbags who get people to give up their babies willingly. Imagine what kind of mind control or drug addiction or whatever that female was under in order to give up her child to be experimented on. Offer up her child. These are cowards who test heat rays and heat wave weapons on prisoners, on inmates, because no one's looking. These are bastards that pretended to treat syphilis and allowed it to spread into the black community. These are scumbags doing herpes and gonorrhea and syphilis and malaria tests on people and watching them die. And then turning around and covering up the Nazi experiments and the 300,000 sterilizations in Nazi Germany so that what happened in America isn't highlighted. Because then it's going to come out in the Nuremberg trials that these people cited the malaria experiments to justify what they were doing. And ironically, the world court was wrong to convict them and not to convict the American scientists. No American scientists were ever charged for these non-consensual experimentations, even though compensation was paid out to to a certain amount of families. The vast majority of people, of victims, were not paid anything. These are sickos. These are sickos who run the system, and it isn't some rogue scientists or rogue psychiatrists. These were the heads of psychiatric associations, American Psychiatric Association, World Psychiatry, you know, Biological Psychiatry Association, Canadian, and so on and so forth. These were the heads. These were the prestigious college professors and the heads of psychiatry departments. These weren't just some pushover doctors. These were John Hopkins and Yale and so on. These were the most respected of the respected people in their pathetic field of science. Or pseudoscience, whatever the case may be. These were the people backed by 2 million Freemasons and allowed to further their Masonic agenda. These are sickos, okay? And if you conform to sickos, you are a coward. You might think you have a good reason for being a coward, but you're still a coward. You say, well, I love pussy. You're a pussy-whipped coward. You say, well, I love money. Money is your God and you're a fucking coward. You say, well, they might hurt my family. Oh, that makes you a bitch. And if your family convinced you to do it because they're scared, well, they're bitches too. Since when does society allow for that excuse? If you consider yourself a man, you say, well, you know, imagine if Mandela said, oh, I'm worried about my family. Imagine if Martin Luther King, I'm worried about my family. I'm just not going to say anything anymore. Imagine if Malcolm X. Imagine if, you know, we'll even give the American Revolutionary, you know, soldiers credit. Imagine if they said, well, the British might hurt my family. They might hurt them. I'm scared. Some bitch shit, right? That's cowardice leading to conformity. You might say to yourself, well, I have a good reason to not, you know, to back down. You're still a coward. I might be homeless. You're a coward. You're a fucking coward. Pick your fucking reason for being a coward. Pick your reason for being a bitch. Pick your reason for being a weakling. Even if it is the best reason on the planet, you are still a fucking weakling.